Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Healthcare Consumerism Radio. This is Brent Macy, Managing Director of the Institute for Healthcare Consumerism, in studio with CEO and founder of the Institute for Healthcare Consumerism, Doug Field. And welcome back.
Joining us on the phone is Roy Schoenberg, CEO of American Well. Roy, good morning.
Good morning. Good to be here.
Yeah, good to have you on the program. Good to talk to you again. Roy, give our audience a little background on American Well, and then we'll talk more about telehealth.
Sure. So American Well operates clearly in the healthcare business. What we provide is really the ability for patients to interact with physicians really through technologies that are available to you pretty much kind of in your home and in your pocket. We allow patients from all over the country who operate in about 48 states today to, whether it's an app that's on your phone or whether it's a browser that you use, at their liberty, at their leisure, to tap into a network of physicians that are available 24/7. They can look at the different physicians who are available in their states. They can read about them, get comfortable with the one they want, and amazingly enough, click on Connect and see the physician live for a visit. And the physician can diagnose, they can prescribe medications that show up in your pharmacy, and for the most part, in most cases, your health insurance actually covers it. So this is a different way of doing healthcare from start to finish.
So convenient access and affordability and quality of care, all three are being addressed to these telehealth services, correct?
Yeah, it's the arrival of technology into healthcare delivery. That's maybe the best title to describe it.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, healthcare is an industry that takes its time in bringing any kind of modernism into it. And the arrival of telehealth, which is the name that describes everything I just talked about, is actually a pretty significant kind of groundbreaking change to this entire industry. It changes how patients interact with healthcare.
There's a lot of, I think 2015 is going to be a year of continued rapid adoption of telehealth. And there's a lot of players in this space. I think there's a few leaders, and I put you in one of those places. What is your unique differentiator to the others in the space?
Well, there's a lot of, there's more and more operators that are coming into this space, and I think, they're all good in certain things, and some of them are better in ones and better in others. But fundamentally, all of them, in a way, represent one mission, which is to make it significantly less painful for patients to get health care. And just to be clear, this isn't just about a patient who is in, North Dakota in the middle of winter that can't leave their home because of a snowstorm. Right. It actually changes the way people acquire care in metropolitan areas, people who have kids without a babysitter, chronic patients who are at home and have difficulty leaving their beds. But I think probably the biggest differentiation between all of these operators is really whether they, the depth of their understanding of how this can become part of healthcare reality. And just to give you an example, it's pretty easy, at this day and age, to do a FaceTime, over your phone with another individual. Yep. And if the other individual claims to be a physician, then technically you think, oh, well, that's telehealth. But the truth is that it isn't quite that simple, right? Because you need to be able to understand which physician you're going to talk to. There are different specialties involved. We actually have a health insurance product that you want to participate in giving you health care. Prescriptions have to be checked for validity and have to be electronically wired. There are co-pays and deductibles. There are medical records that need to be involved in this. There are rules and regulations in different states on how this should be done right. And the medical societies are actually saying, in very clear words, this is good telehealth versus this is bad telehealth. The distinction between how it's done is really the differentiation between the different operators. Now, I'm not saying that, they're doing a bad job in any sense. I think, some of them are going to correct it. But you really have to know what you're doing when you're doing healthcare, and it's not just video conferencing.
And that's the background of where American Well comes from too, correct? I mean, you're not.
Yes, absolutely.
You're not just.
We're old in the sense of we've been in this business for almost a decade, and I can tell you that that's a long ride. But when you try to make something happen safely and appropriately in the healthcare system, you actually have to spend the time. You have to work with the physicians. You have to work with the health insurance companies. You have to work with the employers. You have to work with the hospital systems, the largest ones out there. You have to work with the state medical boards and the regulators. All of these things have to actually be assimilated into that telehealth capability in order for it to live up to its promise, which is to extend the reach of the healthcare system into patients' homes rather than create, a little gadget that allows you to potentially talk with someone who claims to be a physician. Don't get me wrong, I love gadgets.
Right.
But healthcare is not the place where you want to do. Your health is not the place where you want to play with gadgetry.
Right.
Roy, give us, if you could, you have an example of how one of your clients has implemented your solution?
Sure. I mean, we actually, and it's a funny thing because of, and actually to tie to the previous point, most of the business of American Well, most of the work that we do, most of the services that we offer are actually not offered under the name American Well. We are the enabling technology under it. It actually comes to people, to consumers, to patients under the brand of that they trust. Whether it is their health insurance company, we serve a lot of the Blue Cross Blue Shield companies out there. We serve the national payers out there. We serve a lot of the largest, delivery systems out there, spanning from Providence, Carolina, Cleveland Clinic, and others. Each and every one of them are using our system to deliver, virtual care under their brand. I can probably tell you, I mean, there are ones that are very, very far advanced. Probably, the best example I would think of is Anthem WellPoint, which is a huge, the largest Blue in the country, Blue Cross Blue Shield. They serve, I think, about 40 million people. They have a service that's called Live Health Online, which is actually our system under their brand, and it offers services to millions of patients all over the country.
Now, Roy, when you guys launched an app back in October of 2013, and tell our audience, why you chose to do that, and then what did you learn from, launching that app up until today?
So, I think it's actually a great question because, so we have, incredible amounts of business and usage of our systems through other organizations, through those large hospital systems, through the largest health insurance companies. We serve the government, we serve a lot of retail operators and everything else. But the one thing that we always, thought was very important is really to understand the sentiments of the patient. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, this is where, the rubber meets the road. And when you work from behind, when you're twice removed or three times removed from the patient experience, there's only that much of insight that you can gather. There's only that much of communication that we are allowed to do as the technology, as the intel inside. So what we've decided, as you mentioned, just about a year ago, is we decided, in addition to everything else that we do, we're actually going to also offer direct services. And we've launched what's called Amwell, which is the direct-to-consumer offering of American Well. That's a very small part of our business, but what it allowed us to do is to actually have an uninterrupted channel of communication with the people that eventually capture the value from our system. And I'm the first one to tell you that we have never anticipated the adoption that we got on that thing. We really wanted it to be something that helps us perfect and refine our offering. And today, there's over, 1 million people just on that thing. And as I said, that's a tiny part of our business, and that's right. Over 1 million people. And we've learned a lot. We've learned so much from having that kind of direct contact. And I think everybody benefits from that because what we've learned, then we took back and implemented and refined and perfected the systems that in turn are made available to all of these other parts of our business, the health insurance companies, the hospital systems. We learned what matters.
So Roy, are the consumers, whether they're a member of your health plans where you have a private label or whether they're an employee of a major employer that you might be working with or whether they're a direct consumer, are consumers the ones that are going to drive the adoption of telehealth?
Well, I think consumers understand the value But and that's why the healthcare system is so different, because it's not just putting a product on Amazon and then people saying, hey, that's a great product, we're going to buy it. When it comes down to your health, there's a lot of other questions. Am I getting good care? Is this the care that I need? I mean, especially, for people who growingly have to pay, out of pocket for a lot of services, whether it's high co-pays or deductibles. People have a lot of questions whether this is the care that they need and whether this is good. So I think, yes, consumers are clearly making the statement that getting healthcare through technology works for them. I mean, there are thousands. If you go to the app stores on Apple and Android and look at what people are writing about the services that we offer, that's going to give you way more than me. That's going to give you the understanding of how valuable that is. You have patients saying things like, where have you been all my life? And I will never look at healthcare the same again. And these are the kind of things that give you a sense of the value. However, for consumers to benefit from this, they also need to get the reinforcement that the physician on the other end is a good physician. That's why we work with the Blue Cross Blue Shield organizations. That's why we work with, the Clevelands and the Providences and the Carolinas, because it is really important for them to understand that, they're getting the service of the same physicians that they would otherwise see in person. And again, that's one of the differentiations between our system and some of what, the competition is doing, because we're not taking your call and then calling you back with a physician that we found at random. We're actually giving you great visibility into, you have a choice. You can choose the physicians. You can understand who they are. The understanding of how important it is for the patient to have a comfort level and a recognition of who they're going to talk to is very, very critical. And that is why, yes, consumers are driving it, but just as importantly, the arrival of the health plans, the arrival of the employers, the incorporation of these things into essentially the benefits that employees are getting. And we have, terrific employers, Oracle, Honeywell, Pitney Bowes, many of the other ones, literally hundreds or at this point probably thousands of employers that are using our services under different names. They're playing a very important part, because they're telling their employees, your healthcare is growingly painful, it's costing you an arm and a leg, but here is something that we can do that's going to very much help you in the way that you're interacting with the healthcare system. And then lastly, and I should mention this, regulators, the medical boards of the world, the Washington, even Congress has now, out of nowhere, finally understood how dramatic the effect of this thing is in the availability of healthcare across the entire country. And they're ferociously, it's unbelievable to see, there is new legislation going on every day on, embracing of telehealth, on requiring telehealth to become a benefit. And that is such a wonderful thing to watch. I can tell you this was not the case 5 years ago, but the world has changed so much in the last 12 months. It's just exciting to see.
Hey, Roy, we really appreciate you joining us on the program today, and I'll have to have you back as a guest in the new year. Hope you have a wonderful weekend, and to the rest of our audience, stay tuned for the next segment of Healthcare Consumerism Radio.